Alright, I wanted to make a sort of quick video on the Boss 302 intake on a 2015 to at least 17 F150. Not sure, I'm assuming it works on the newer ones, but I don't know if they have different sensors or anything. I couldn't really find many videos about this, and I figured I'd kind of make something just to kind of give some people like heads up of things that they need to do. You know, maybe slight mods that they got to get into it. But alright, so basically it fits. This is a 2011 to 14 Boss 302 intake manifold from a 5.0 Mustang, obviously. Really the only mods I needed to do is obviously you take off the intake manifold, but there's clips in the back. So there's going to be clips in the back, and those clips are on your harness. They're for the intake manifold runner controls, the IMRCs. You're going to get a code for those when you put this on, because there's no runner control for this intake. Basically all those are is, to my knowledge, it's basically a way to conserve gas, you know, manage the torque rating, the amount of fuel that's going through the fuel and air mixture ratio, like things like that going through your intake. That's all it really is. You can take them off, it'll run perfectly fine without it. You'll just have a check engine code, and then once you go and you add a tune, you'll end up, you know, they'll go away. There is a sensor on the back. That sensor on the back is a map sensor, and that sensor is taken from the old intake. You're gonna have to drill a hole into this intake, which for me was a little scary, but you know, these things aren't that much money anymore and stuff. You can find them on American trucks and things like that for pretty cheap. Pretty sure I got this for like 300, around there maybe. But yeah, you gotta drill a hole. I'll try and find the diameters and put it in the video. I'll put some pictures of the drilled hole. But basically, you drill a hole in it, it seals, it's already got an O-ring on it and everything, and as long as you don't drill it too big, you're gonna be fine. You basically put a self-tapping screw in there and it'll hold it in. Sensor works, there's no leaks, everything works. So another thing that you have to do is you need to cap off one of the brake booster lines, because it doesn't, there's no brake booster connection on there. That's this. I just capped it off with a vacuum cap. I mean, it's all vacuum anyways, so capped it off. You can delete that part of the line, but I kept it on there because I wasn't sure how my gas mileage was going to get. I wasn't sure how I was going to like it. I heard a lot of things about losing torque and losing, you know, basically momentum and everything with this. That happens in the beginning, but when you tune it, if you get a good enough tune, I'm pretty sure I got mine from 5-star. I'd have to check. Yeah, I got it from 5-star. Once you tune it, that's all back. It feels even better, to be honest. Like, a lot of people say, oh, you're going to lose all your torque, this and that. You do initially, but then when you get the tune in there, it's back. So, I mean, if you don't have the money for a tuner, and you don't really mind losing a little bit of torque, because this is a very high revving intake manifold. I mean, it really loves power at the top end. So if you don't mind losing the low end torque for a little bit until you could either afford a tuner or until you can get the tune installed, then, I mean, I say go for it. It's really not a bad mod. It actually, I mean, this thing, I'll throw a 0 to 60 up. once you get the tune installed and everything like that, it's pretty good. Pcv valve, you also need to, kind of relocate. Mine is actually underneath the intake. It's kind of hard to see, so it runs from there, from this line, then it goes down, and I just used the stock one and just kind of hung it there. Other than that, you're probably going to have one other pretty significant thing that you need to do to put this intake manifold on and make it work with the setup in a 2015 to 17 F150 with the 5.0. And then one that's pretty obvious, but I'll go over it anyways. So you're gonna have to cut and extend your heater hose. So that's what I did here. I don't recommend putting it under it because it's kind of got a built-in neck on it, and I had tried that and it didn't end too well. You basically just get those little fittings, the little hose extender fittings, whatever they're called, they're gold. And you put them in, you hose clamp it down, and it extends it. I mean, you just cut it and extend it. Now, the only other thing that I can think of is the air intake. I haven't tried a stock one, but I had a Roush cold air intake on here to begin with. Basically, I had to take out the box though, because with these lines, it couldn't clear the box, which was pretty unfortunate. I'm contemplating cutting it and getting it so I could lift it up a little higher and get the box back in, because it's sealed really nice against the hood. But until then, I basically just have it sitting here open, and I mean, it works, it fits. I need a new filter, and other than that, that's pretty much everything to it. I mean, it was a really simple install. It took a little time. Ford likes to tape, at least on mine, they like to tape the connectors on the back of the original intake manifold, and that was a real pain to get off because you really don't have much room. I was literally inside of here in my engine bay getting that all off. But I mean, I would say it's worth it. It's not too bad. I'll start it up. Warming up. It's still a little cold out. It just snowed like a week ago, but runs perfectly fine, and it's pretty quick for something on 35s and for this size. So I mean, if you're interested in adding it, I figured a little bit more of a detailed video. I couldn't find really much about the map sensor. I couldn't find much about actually cutting this hose and extending it, even though it's pretty self-explanatory. Couldn't really find much about the Pcv valve, things like that. So I figured I'd make some sort of video that kind of helps everybody, and maybe will at least help you out in deciding if you're going to do it or not, even if it's not that intake manifold. Maybe it's a slightly similar one. But other than that, hopefully this video helped you out and kind of answered a little bit of the questions that you needed about this intake manifold, because I was very confused when I first got it. I thought it was going to be a lot more work than it was, but it really was pretty straightforward and simple. I mean, like I said, I recommend keeping that one line for the brake booster that came off the old intake manifold. I recommend keeping that just plugged up, because if you ever find the need or the want or the desire to go back to the old one, you don't want to have to redo any vacuum line and things like that. I just plugged it up with a legitimate vacuum port plug that I just basically shoved into the hose. So other than that, I mean, the bay's a little messy. I gotta clean some things up, maybe touch some things, and there's a ton of salt all over it. But other than that, very straightforward install. once you get a tune, I recommend 5-star tune because they legitimately have a tune specifically for this setup, for the Boss 302 intake manifold, and for F150 5.0s and things like that. I think they asked me, you know, if I had an exhaust on it. They asked me if I had a cold air intake. They asked me if I had the Boss 302. It all just kind of compacts into the main price, but it was only about $200, maybe $300 tops, not even. And you just, you know, you get yourself a little tuner. I got my tuner right there. And yeah, once you do all that, it pretty much is self-explanatory. They bring back all the power. They give you a ton more horsepower. I mean, this thing flies. And they also give you all your torque back. So it's worth it. I think it's a worth it little mod. Basically the poor man's turbo for these trucks. So, all right.